And just like that, we are talking about end of year awards. We are getting towards the end of the calendar year. And yesterday, World Rugby released their list for the Players of the Year categories. And in this video, we're chatting about the men's award. Welcome back to the channel. Let me know down below, who do you think should win it? Of the 4 nominees, I'll run through all of them. Give me your views on who you think should be the one to pick up that award. Also, like the video, and whilst you're here, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that subscribe button and don't miss anything. So the nominees are, if you haven't seen them, Pieter-Steph Toit, Eben Etzebeth, Cheslin, Kolbe, and Caolan, Dorris. Those are the 4 names on this list. Before I get to all of them, we've got to talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to the World Rugby Awards. And that is, since they've been doing them, which is a little over 20 years, I think 2001, I think was the first time that they were kind of doing this award, a prop has never, ever been nominated. And in particular, I think at the moment and in this generation and this year in particular, it's Oxen Che that is the name that is missing really from that list, I think you could argue. But I think the wider point here about how props are undervalued when it comes to these awards is worth emphasising. The scrum is such a key part of rugby union. It sets it apart from rugby league. It sets it apart from all other sports. The fact that a prop has never been nominated and the fact that dominance in that area can literally turn a game, I think is absolutely ridiculous. So I would probably have Oxen Che on this list. I think this year isn't as much of a travesty for that as it was last year. Following the World Cup, how some of those South African front rowers, including Oxen Che, weren't involved in the Player of the Year list is baffling to me, really. But there we go. I wanted to flag that at the start of the video. There's also no Dupont on this list, but he is on the sevens list. I suppose you could argue he hasn't always been playing international rugby. And I think this is ultimately an international rugby award because from a club point of view, you'd say Dupont should probably be on it, given that he was brilliant for Toulouse in their win in the Champions Cup, won the French top 14 as well. So yeah, he's on the sevens list. So I'd imagine he will almost certainly pick up that award, even though he only played a few tournaments but did win Olympic sevens. Anyway, we'll wait and see. So Pieter-Steph Toit, Eben Etzebeth, Cheslin, Kolbe, Caolan, Dorris. Who gets your nomination? Let me start with Pieter-Steph Toit because he is a guy who never puts in a bad performance, does he? Like, he is always, I think, at a minimum, he's a 7 out of 10, and he's often better than that. I think he's the best blindside in the world. I think what he brings in terms of physicality, in terms of his all-round game, and I think he's been that way for a long, long time. I mean, he won this award, didn't he, in 2019 after they won the World Cup? Was that the year that he won it then? Like, he has been at such a high level for such a long time, and he's been so crucial to this South African team, who are the best team of this generation and this era. He's kind of one of those players that, yeah, of course he's going to be nominated. And actually, I think when you look at this South African team, and I know this is an award for this year, but if I can reference back to the World Cup last year for just a second, he's the sort of player that is crucial in those knockout World Cup games when they're winning games by a single point. He's the sort of player that is a real point of difference, that is so consistently so good in the biggest matches. I love Pieter-Steph Toit. I think he absolutely gets in a World 15, probably has done over the last like 5-6 years. So he's a very worthwhile nominee. Let me get on to Eben Etzebeth. And I can say a lot of similar things here for Etzebeth than I could for Pieter-Steph, really. I think Etzebeth is the best lock of his generation. For a little while, the question was going to be, was it Maro Itoje? Was it Eben Etzebeth? They were both at a very, very high level. I think Etzebeth has been at a more consistently high level than anyone else over the last decade, really. And he's so much more than a second row. There's often this perception, isn't there, that because he is so ginormous, because he gets in players' faces, and we have all those social media clips that go around of him grabbing onto someone's shirt and staring into them, and that grin that comes across his face, the kind of wild look in his eyes. But he's actually so much more than that. We saw that a little bit at the weekend against England, actually, in terms of charging down box kicks. He can do an awful lot around the park, plus his carrying, his line-out work, disrupting mauls. He is an absolute handful. He is a generational player. And actually, he's never won this award. And someone said to me yesterday, it kind of feels right that Etzebeth at some point picks up this award. And I think that is right, because I think he will go down as a legend of the game. I mean, what is he? The caps record now for for the Springboks. We will look back in years to come. He will be one of these players that we reference back to as a point of reference for, oh, that was a great second row. He was a really, really great second row. And so actually, I think it feels to me he needs to end his career. It feels right that he needs to end his career at some point picking up the World 15s Player of the Year. And as I say, similar to Pieter-Steph to Toit, he is very, very consistent. He has been doing it over a long period, and this year has been no different. On to Cheslin Kolbe. So I think Cheslin Kolbe alongside Antoine Dupont is the most all-round player in the world. You can argue between yourselves of who you think is the most all-round. They're both absolutely phenomenal. And we've known this for a while, right? But it was certainly being at Twickenham on the weekend. And Kolbe was brilliant in the aerial game against a player like Freddie Stewart, who was much taller than him. He's obviously great with ball in hand. We've known that since he was a kid in the under-20 side for South Africa. Give him a bit of space, not even that much space, and he will make things happen in a way that very few rugby players in the history of the sport are able to do. He's unbelievable. But he's also got a kicking game. We've seen him take conversions. In Chasing the Sun 2, he was their scrum half cover in the World Cup final when they went with a 7-1 bench. We've seen him throw in at lineouts. Like, he is absolutely brilliant. He can do it all, and he can do it all to a really high level. And then actually, the one thing I haven't mentioned in all of that is his defence is underrated. Like, we consistently see him put in big hits, even though he's not the biggest guy on the pitch. Like, he again is another one of these weapons in this South African team that, as brilliant and as amazing as the strength in depth is in South Africa, a bit like Etzebeth in a way, you know they've got great players coming through for when he finally departs, but can you truly replace a Cheslin Kolbe? I mean, Springbok fans, let me know. Is he the greatest ever South African winger? So because of when I grew up and kind of the players that were the big names when I was really watching rugby as a teenager, Bryan Habana is the guy that immediately comes to mind to me. But I think Kolbe is a far more all-round winger than Bryan Habana was, as brilliant as Habana was. He is one of the most all-round players on the planet. He can do it all and do it all to a high level. He's crucial for that Springbok team. Final name on the list, Caolan Dorris. I think Dorris has had an excellent year. He's building into the captaincy role. Similarly to Etzebeth, I think he does quite a lot that is unseen. He's a really good number 8, but he does a lot of other things within that island system. If I'm being completely honest, I think Dorris is brilliant. I think he's had a great year. I would probably have Oxenche instead of him on this list. But I think Dorris has been very, very good. I just wonder with him whether... And Ireland still have 2 games to go this autumn, so we'll see. But I just wonder whether Ireland's slight drop-off over the last few weeks might count against him. I think this award is probably going to end up going to one of the 3 Springboks, in my opinion. Let me know if you disagree with me. The question then is, who is it going to go to? And who do we think should get it? So for me, when I looked at this list, my gut instinct straight away said Kolbe. Cheslin Kolbe should win it because of all the reasons that I've just outlined. But actually, that point I made on Etzebeth, that I think he deserves to win it at some point during his career, it feels unjust for a player of his significance and of his greatness not to win it at some point. I actually would like to see Eben Etzebeth pick up the award. I think it will be between him and Kolbe. I think Pieter-Steph, as I've outlined already, is incredibly worthwhile. But yeah, I would vote for Eben Etzebeth. Who would you vote for? Who do you want to see win this award out of those 4 players? And justice for the props. Justice for the props. At some point, surely World Rugby has to realise props need to be on this list. It's ridiculous. Let me know in the comments section. Like the video as well. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.